Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying on with us. You're watching a brand new edition of WION-VOA co-production. My name is Molly Gambhir. And our top focus in this edition, U.S. lawmakers will try for a fourth day on Friday to elect a speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. This as a group of 20 conservatives continued to block the Republican leader Kevin McCarthy's bid for that post. VOA Congressional Correspondent Katherine Gypson getting us reactions from Capitol Hill. Take a look.
A group of conservative lawmakers standing firm.
Does it look like I'm ready to make a deal?
Despite overnight negotiations, they continued to deny Republican Kevin McCarthy the handful of votes needed to become Speaker in the very narrowly Republican-controlled U.S. House.
I think everybody in the conversation wants to find a solution.
But among conservative talk show hosts this week, Republicans face criticism for the delay.
The American people, they voted for governance. They voted for oversight. They voted for checks. They voted for balances. They didn't vote for Republicans to go to D.C. and waste time and bicker among themselves and grandstand.
And acknowledge conservatives' concerns about McCarthy.
McCarthy is not especially conservative. He is, in fact, ideologically agnostic. He's flexible. His real constituency is the lobbying community in Washington. So if you've got sincere political beliefs, that is infuriating to watch.
Republican Representative Byron Donalds garnered the most votes from the conservatives opposing McCarthy, who argued the delay was healthy for U.S. democracy.
It's not dysfunction, and it's not imperiling. What it is the exchange of ideas, an expression of support for people you want to be your leader in the next Congress.
Democrats remain united behind Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, even as their party falls just 6 votes short of the 218 needed to make him Speaker. He called on Republicans to end the stalemate.
Morning, everyone. This is day 3. My hope that today the House Republicans will stop the bickering, stop the backbiting, and stop the backstabbing of each other so we can have the back of the American people.
The U.S. House of Representatives cannot function, let alone swear new members into office, until a new Speaker is elected. Katherine Gypson, VOA News, Washington.
And with me on the broadcast for more on this is VOA correspondent Jessica Stone. She's live from the White House. Hi, Jessica. Today is the 2nd anniversary of the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol building. How is Washington marking this moment?
Well, we expect that President Joe Biden will make remarks just after lunch and hold a ceremony in which he's going to talk a lot about the importance of democracy and relate it back to the events of January 6th. He is also going to hold a ceremony to award the President's Citizen Medal, which is the highest civilian honor that a president can bestow. He's going to give that to 12 different people, all of them central role players in the events of January 6th and protecting not only the politicians but the American people. They include those killed and injured in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, also election workers who were personally targeted by former President Donald Trump to overturn the 2020 election, those that stood up against that effort, including people that run the elections in various states that were integral to that fight in 2020. Many of these citizens, of course, testified before the former committee on the House side, the investigative committee into the events of January 6th. And as you'll recall, that committee has referred prosecutorial charges against the former president late last year.
Right. Jessica, the House committee released their report, but where is the Justice Department investigation at the moment?
Well, it is in the hands of the Department of Justice, and the FBI has now increased the reward for finding those that left a pair of pipe bombs, one at the Democratic National Committee headquarters, the other at the Republican National Committee headquarters. They were found on January 6th, 2021, in the middle of all of that chaos. The award now raised to $500,000 for any information leading to those pipe bomb individuals. Former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund has also released a book detailing his thoughts on the level of evolution that has, or as he would say, has not taken place in the Capitol Police Department since that day. He says basically we failed to see the warning signs of danger, even though there was intelligence reports indicating an imminent attack on the U.S. Capitol. He writes that the Capitol Police, quote, are not on readier footing now. And he also called for a power structure change in how the Capitol Police report, because right now they are accountable first and foremost to a board that is run by the members of Congress, and they can't make as many decisions independently in terms of securing that building as they would if they would be able to be more independent. He's calling for that independence as one way to avoid a repeat of what happened on January 6, 2021. Molly?
Right. Jessica, thanks for those inputs, but do continue to stay on with us. I want to also get our viewers some more details on how U.S. President Joe Biden has said that he will be visiting the Texas-Mexico border. This is ahead of a summit next week with the leaders of Mexico and Canada. And this is a move that once again puts the spotlight on immigration, one of the meeting's topics, and a sensitive domestic issue as well for Joe Biden. From Washington, VOA's Anita Powell looking at what the leaders will be covering during the two-day summit in Mexico City. Take a look.
These three leaders always have a lot of ground to cover when they meet. Together, they oversee over 500 million people and almost 20 million square kilometers of land. But as the North American heads of state prepare to summit next week in Mexico's capital, the unrelenting flow of migrants to the U.S.'s southern border will take the spotlight. U.S. Customs and Border Protection counted nearly 2.4 million southern land border encounters in fiscal year 2022. Most crossings involve Mexican nationals, but a sizable number also involve migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Ahead of next week's summit, Biden announced new immigration restrictions and said he will make the U.S.-Mexico border visit his opponents have long been calling for.
Next week, I'm going to travel to Mexico, where I'm going to meet with President López Obrador. We have a big agenda that ranges from the climate crisis to economic development and other issues. But one important part of that agenda is strengthening our border between our nations. And I will visit the border myself this Sunday in El Paso to assess border enforcement operations, meet with the local officials and community leaders and the folks at the border.
Some analysts say the focus on the border distracts from other important issues between the three nations, which have substantial trade, cultural, and environmental ties.
What should happen and what can happen are probably two separate things. I think all three leaders are going to be looking at this summit through a domestic lens and trying to make progress on the issues that affect them domestically in the United States. That's clearly migration.
But that focus can also benefit Mexico, say analysts, by distracting from its problems with security, the drug trade, democratic backsliding, and a major dispute with the U.S. over energy policy.
The fact that migration has such a political impact in the electorate of the United States that President López Obrador is using that as a way to force the Biden administration to turn a blind eye in many of these other abuses.
And Farnsworth urges leaders to look beyond North America.
If the meeting degenerates into a discussion of commercial disputes and border politics, I mean, those are important issues, don't get me wrong, but it means that the vision of a more unified and more competitive North America will once again be shoved to the side. And I think that's a real loss for the citizens of North America.
The White House says there are many issues to discuss over the two-day summit.
Climate and environmental challenges increase North America's competitiveness, protect the health and safety of our citizens, jointly respond to irregular migration in the region, and advance diversity, equity, and inclusion as well.
But with Biden visiting the Texas border before heading to the Mexican capital, this place, for so many people, the bristling border between despair and hope, is where all eyes will be. Anita Powell, VOA News, Washington.
And going back across now to Jessica Stone, who's been getting us more on these developments. Jessica, President Biden has been under pressure to take more action as far as the crisis on the U.S.-Mexico border is concerned. Since October, in fact, more than 300,000 migrant encounters have been reported at the border. What can you tell us about that?
Well, President Biden says he will make a trip to El Paso, Texas on Sunday, and critics have long called for him to do this, in part because the El Paso mayor has been very vocal about talking about how his city simply can't handle more migrant encounters, more people being brought into El Paso or even released while they make and wait out their asylum claims. Biden made no really specific announcements on security, additional security. He did say that they will be sending more resources to the border, but we have no numbers about the way that will impact agents, asylum seekers, asylum judges, and the lot. But he also focused a lot on expanding a program that seems to have been working in terms of reducing the numbers coming from Venezuela. He expanded that program to Nicaragua, to Haiti, to Cuba, and also still includes Venezuela. He's going to basically cap the numbers that can apply for asylum in a different fashion to 30,000 people, and they will be able to apply not at the border, but using an app that makes them stay in their home country. They have to find a sponsor. They have to find a flight to the United States. They have to go through the process from their home country. And if they come to the border, they'll be turned away if a person does that. Now, meanwhile, Biden is calling for really more immigration reforms coming out of the U.S. Congress, for a more thorough response to the immigration issues, and trying to do what he can, he would argue, on the migrant issue in the short term.
Right, and the president has also been facing pressure to address the future of a policy originally put in place to curb the spread of COVID by turning away asylum seekers, and the U.S. health authorities saying that Title 42 is no longer needed for public health reasons. What is the latest on that front?
Yeah, Title 42 has been in the news a lot lately. We've talked about it late last year because there are rolling deadlines, and we had one late last year where we were really trying to figure out what was going to happen here at the White House. And at this point, the Supreme Court has taken over on December 27th. They decided that basically they would extend Title 42 until this process with the Republican-led states who filed a case at the courts asking them to stop Title 42 from being removed, essentially allowing migrants to come in that the U.S. could not turn away. Those 19 Republican-led states are still winding their way through the courts with that action. But according to the White House, the Biden administration is also preparing for the eventual lifting of Title 42. Their White House fact sheet says they are increasing the numbers of immigration judges, asylum officers, and patrol agents at the Border Patrol, although we don't have any firm figures, as I mentioned earlier, on the amount of monies or officers they're attempting to add. And as you said earlier, we've got just in the first part of fiscal year 2023, 300,000 migrants have crossed the border in just the first 2 months, not including January, just October and November, not including December either. And so these are the numbers from the Customs and Border Patrol Office indicating a high number of people attempting to or crossing the border, and about half of them are turned away under Title 42. So we have some fairly large numbers to talk about. Certainly something we'll look forward to hearing more from President Biden and others as they meet in Mexico and even at his visit to El Paso and Texas on Sunday.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Jessica, thanks very much for being here on this broadcast. With that, it's a wrap on WION-VOA co-production.